HOA Karen called emergency as I parked my boat, not realizing I owned the whole marina. The day was hot, the kind of heat that sticks to your skin and makes the air shimmer above the asphalt. I just finished a week of hauling cattle across the state line, and the one thing I wanted was to take my boat out for a slow drift across the lake. That boat wasn't just some toy either. It was my father's, a deep-hulled fishing boat he'd bought secondhand in the 70s. Patched so many times that the metal looked like a quilt. Every dent had a story, every coat of faded paint a memory. To me, pulling it into the water wasn't just recreation, it was heritage. But Karen didn't see it that way. She never did. To her, the sight of my trailer backing down the ramp was a violation. To her, everything about me, my boots, my land, my family, was some sort of affront to the order she thought she commanded. So before my tires even touched the slope, she was already on her phone, barking into 911 like the lake itself belonged to her. She was waving her clipboard with one hand and the phone with the other, telling the dispatcher that an unregistered vessel was trespassing, that she feared for public safety. Her voice carried across the water, shrill and certain, the kind of voice that had gotten too many neighbors fined into submission. I ignored her at first. I'd learned long ago that reacting to Karen's tantrums only fed them. The boat slid down with the hiss of rollers, kissed the water, and floated like it had been waiting for me. The sun glinted on the ripples as I secured the ropes, and for a moment, I felt the calm I'd been craving all week. That calm lasted right up until two sheriff's cruisers rolled into the lot, lights flashing in the noon haze. Karen strutted to them like she was their commander, stabbing her finger toward me. "There, that man is illegally docking his boat," she declared, her voice triumphant, like she'd already won. The deputies looked at her, then at me, then at each other with the kind of weariness you only see in men who've answered one too many calls about lawn heights and mailbox paint. One of them sighed, rested his hand on his belt, and asked me, "Sir, do you have permission to use this marina?" That was when I smiled, because Karen hadn't done her homework. She didn't know the papers I carried in the glove box of my truck, the ones with my name signed on the deed. She didn't know that the marina, the ramps, the docks, the storage sheds, had been purchased by me 3 years ago when the old owners retired. She didn't know that every boat that launched, every kayak that scraped its hull on the concrete, every fishing line that cast into the water here did so under my allowance, not hers. I pulled out the documents, handed them to the deputy, and let the silence do the rest. Karen's face drained of color as he read the seal, the signatures, the county stamps. "Looks like he's not trespassing," the deputy finally said, handing the papers back. "Looks like he's the owner." For a moment, Karen just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. The crowd of neighbors who had gathered, because HOA business was always a spectacle, began to murmur. Some laughed under their breath, some shook their heads, some simply looked relieved that someone had finally stood up to her. And me? I just climbed into my boat, fired up the motor, and eased out onto the lake, leaving Karen sputtering on the shore. But that wasn't the end. Not by a long shot.